welcome back. My name is Lynn, and welcome to Hope for Today. I've got my mug up here today that says hope. We all need hope every day, all day, every minute of every day. So we have a podcast, and it is to teach you the Word of God through the Word of God, to help you understand more of the Word of God, maybe through a biblical story, the life of someone in the Bible. We've talked about Abram, we've talked about Abigail, we've talked about so many people along the way. And sometimes we take a verse and we just break the verse down to understand just, how that verse can help us. What's in that one verse? Sometimes one verse is powerful. Other times we've taken a passage. Other times we've talked about topics that can help you get through life, get through the day, give you the hope that you need. And we're going to take a little breather, do something a little different. And I hope you enjoy this. It has tremendously helped me in so many ways. I've actually taught devotions to different groups, and I'm doing one coming up in March to a group of girls, teen girls, and I'll be teaching them this same principle. And I've taken this from my own personal thing, if you want to call it, that I do, and turned it into a devotion where I teach people this concept and share it in a devotion form. And I think it's so beneficial that I really wanted to share it with you. It's still at the beginning of a new year. It is a fresh start. Okay, even if maybe in January you went, didn't do my devotions. I didn't do it. I wasn't there. I kind of messed up. My prayer life wasn't the best. My walk with the Lord, a little rocky. You know what? That's okay. It's only February. You still have 11 months that you can make a big change in your life to make a difference, to really find purpose in your life, to feel the presence of God in your life, and to move forward. I get that there are days we don't want to wake up. I get that there are days where just to get out of bed is a struggle. I've heard from many of you. I've been there myself where, why bother getting out of bed? What hope is there for today? How am I going to get through the day? Maybe there's some days you're so excited to get out of bed. God's been working in your life and doing miraculous things, and you were just so excited. You're bursting with joy, and you just want to get into the Word of God. Have you ever been there when you're excited and you just need a verse to sort of confirm where you're at in life because you're excited about something? That's a good thing too. I want to talk about a prayer journal. And this week we're going to talk about that. And the next week we're going to talk about something similar. Why have a prayer journal? I'm not a journaler. I don't know how many of you are. I don't like writing things down. I never have. I'm not one to journal and write my thoughts down. And I just can't be bothered. I find it almost an annoyance. But the one thing I did start was a prayer journal before I got married. And it is funny because, I'll get into that in a minute. I'll tell you something I wrote down before I got married, and I still have it in my prayer journal. But I want to go to 1 John 5:14 through 15. It says, "This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to His will, He hears us. And if we know that He hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have what we asked of Him." This is according to His will. This is not according to our will. So let's just set that record straight right there. I can pray for all the things that I want. And if it's not according to God's will and I'm persistent about it and I don't have the right heart about it, God might still grant it to me, only to show me that you wanted it, you begged me for it, I gave it to you, but it's not what I wanted you wouldn't listen to me, and now you have it, and let's see what you do with it. We always want to be praying in the will of God. And I find that when I'm walking closely with the Lord, praying for things in His will becomes easy because I have the sensitivity to the Lord's leading. But I think that's a good place to start for our prayer journal. What is a prayer journal? A prayer journal is a notebook. It's something simple. I brought this one today. You can get these cheap. You can go to the dollar store. Go to the dollar store and get a composition notebook. You don't need anything fancy. You could get something like this. This was $1, and it came with a pen There you go. Something very simple. What is a prayer journal? It's a place to write things down. It's a place to write down your prayer request. And it's a place to record your prayer request, to record when God answers those prayers, to record, maybe it's an answer that it's ongoing. God answered this part of it. And the Lord gave me a sign and I can see it, and so on. And he answered this part of it this day and so on. It's a great place to refer back to. I know myself, how easy I forget. Someone just said to me the other day, and we laughed. She said, I've been a Christian my whole life. You think I'd get it? Do you think I'd get it? I get it too. I've been a Christian almost my whole life since I'm a little girl. And every day I wake up and I'm like, Lynn, what don't you get? Struggling with fear and struggling with anxiety and struggling with these things is a common thing right now. The world we live in, you can't turn the news on for being fearful. And yet we know we are not to be fearful. So how can a prayer journal help you? What should it include? Well, I include prayer requests. I include details about those prayer requests. So if I'm praying for my kids, I don't just name my child. I name my child and exactly specific things in their life. Maybe they're choosing a spouse. Maybe they're choosing a school. Maybe they're choosing a new career. Maybe they're choosing where to be in leadership at church or whatever the case might be. I record the answers to those prayers because that is important. I might record a verse that the Lord gave me a verse or I put a prayer request in, and I like to carry my prayer journal with me when I go to church because sometimes I'm listening to a message and the Lord has pastor refer to a certain verse and I'm like, oh, that fits perfectly with what I've been praying for. So I want to jot that prayer request down. I like to date things too. I like to date when I wrote that prayer request down. I like to date when the Lord gave me that verse. I like to see a sequence of events like that. I like to record verses so that when I'm crying out to the Lord or I'm happy with the way things are going, I have something to refer back to, and I can see a pattern. Does writing these things really help? I don't know. Does it? You tell me. Do you have a prayer journal? This is not for everyone. I'm not a journaler. So I'm going to go into a little bit more. What do you do if you're not a journaler? But I don't like to journal. I just don't like it. And I know my sister could journal all day long. She loves it. And so it depends on you. It depends on your needs. It depends on where you're at in life. I found that journaling my prayer request in a very simple form really allowed me to see what God has been doing. Have I kept the same journal all these years? No. I have one, let me go back to that I started to tell you about. I have one that when I was, just before I started dating my husband, I had several prayer requests, where to move, what job to take. I was in a huge transition in my life, in every area, my job, my career, my schooling, everything. And I remembered the one night I met my husband. Now, this is coming from somebody who was never getting married and never having children. And I said to the Lord, if you have someone, you bring him to me. I will know it. That's the end of the story. And so here I am happily in my career, making some major career changes that would have been financially very wonderful to me. And I go to an event for college and career and I look and I see my husband. And I said in my brain, that's the man I'm going to marry. I had no doubt. Well, 35 plus years later, we're still together. I'm still madly in love. And the Lord brought him into my life. But in my prayer journal, he was the type of guy that I thought, there's no way. Graham Wilson to me was like, there's no way he'd ever date me. So in my prayer journal, I prayed for one date. I would have been satisfied to have one date with Graham Wilson. I had him in such a high regard, and I thought, if I could get one date, Lord, I would be happy with that. I'll be content. I won't ask for any more than that. So I put the date in there, and then I have next to it in the next column, first date. And I have the date that the Lord answered that. The next column was the date that Graham asked me to go steady. And then the next date was the day we got married. And I look at how God has moved in that one area of my life. I prayed for one date. He not only gave me a date, but then he said, you want to go steady? And then we got married. And 35 years later, we have kids, we have a family, we have a home. We've established a life together in ministry, and it's wonderful. Was it worth journaling that? Absolutely. There are other times I've written it down in a book. There's other times I've not. A few weeks ago, I told you I had written 15 things down in my phone, and I locked it in the notes to use a password. I had to use a password to get in there, and I just didn't want to look at it. I was just very burdened, and I didn't know how to sort through. Anyway, weeks and weeks and weeks later, I opened it, and the Lord had answered 11 of the 15. There were 4 left, and those are 4 ongoing requests. Those are things that still need to, over time, be answered. But God is faithful. He answered them. And some of them I didn't even have to think about. And other things I actually, oh yeah, He moved a few mountains for me to get through, and I got to the other side. How can I get started with a prayer journal? Buy a notebook. I would recommend a notebook so you don't have scraps of paper. Again, get a composition notebook. Buy a special pen. Now, we as women, we like things a little foo-foo, If you're a guy and you're listening to this, maybe not. But my husband likes a good pen. We're pen snobs. And he likes a good pen. But I find sometimes if you have a specific notebook with a specific pen and a specific place in your, at your desk or in a chair, in a quiet place, when you sort of create that moment, it creates that time for you to be able to say, this is my time for my prayer journal. I'm going to sit here with my favorite pen and my notebook, and it creates that moment. And it might sound silly, but I think that's a good thing. And, be as creative as you want. And this goes for both men and women. You can be very creative. You can have a pretty creative notebook like this, or you can just go ahead and get a composition notebook. If you want to put stickers on that, you want to draw and you want to sketch in that. Sometimes, people need to sketch and doodle, and it helps their brain think. I have little cards on my desk at work, and I have them at home, and they're Bible verses. And one on the back, it says, I am not an accident, on the back of the card. And on the front of the card, it says, I am your creator. You were in my care even before you were born. Isaiah 44:2. And this one says, living on purpose is the path to peace. On one side, and then in the other side is a verse. You, Lord, give perfect peace to those who keep their purpose firm and put their trust in you. Isaiah 26:3. These are things like this. Sometimes in the prayer requests that I might have, a verse might stand out. Maybe, you have one of these cards. You can just, glue it right into the page in the book. And I might find a sticker, or I might need to pretty it up. I'm a very creative person, so creative, colorful pages make me look at it more. I don't know, whatever it takes, whatever it means to you. You can look up and Google prayer journals. You can buy some that have questions where you can fill in the blanks. They have other ones that you can color in the pages. Like if you need a creative outlet, sometimes for me, I can't think straight. Lord, I need to pray and I just can't think. And for me to maybe do like an adult coloring book where they have a page in your prayer journal where you can actually color it. And then the next page would be where you list your prayers. Just that sitting for a moment and doodling or coloring kind of allows your brain to sort of disconnect from one thing and go to the other. And then you can think seriously about this. So I really want to encourage you to start a prayer journal. I want to encourage you to start writing these things down. It is great to see how God works in your life, and we are so silly. We forget what God did yesterday and how he answered prayers. And I find myself time and time going, I got to write this down, because I know in a week I'll completely forget. I'll be at ground zero again. And I'll be like, oh, Lynn, when's the last time God did something for you? I don't know. Pull out my prayer journal. And then there I go. Oh, yeah, last week he did this. Just yesterday he did this, this, and this. Oh, today he did that. It's a great way to remember. And I'll tell you what you can do. When you have these answers to prayer, take a moment and thank the Lord for what he is doing in your life. So I hope you too start a prayer journal. Go back to the verse we referred to. And don't forget to come back next week, because we're going to talk about something else that you can do to help you in your walk and bring you hope for today. Thanks so much for coming over, and we'll see you next week.